Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Born to be Wild listener series. We are in the final week of Season 6 in a epic face-off tonight of DoctorBOMD, one of our previous champions, and Stazari. This match tonight is to determine who gets third place, and then tomorrow morning we will be doing the very final match, hosting here. For those of you who are not familiar, the Born to Wild listener series is a wild Hearthstone tournament series with custom deck building restrictions each week. It is theme based around the lore of our past expansion here around the Lich King, and it's been quite an epic ride so far. We will get into this week's lore and challenges in just a moment, but let me explain how this series plays out. We utilize the Conquest format, so this is how it works. In each week, players submit 4 decks consisting of separate classes. Classes and deck lists are hidden until after the weekly submission deadline. Once classes and deck lists are revealed, players have an opportunity to review and ban one of their opponent's decks. Band selections are hidden until both players have submitted their bans, at which point they are revealed. In the Conquest format, when a player wins with the deck, that player must then move on to a different deck. The losing player may switch decks, but they are not required to do so. The victor is the first player to win matches with all 3 decks. All right, and then we do have our lore segment here. Let me pass it over to Sheep.
Absolutely. So, the lore this week, this week's challenge is, well, the power of domination. And Goliath the Dwarf will go over the lore itself.
After many years on the frozen throne, Bolvar Fordragon's time as the Lich King came to an end when the Helm of Domination was destroyed by Sylvanas Windrunner. Now a champion of the Lord of Eternal Torment known as the Jailer, Windrunner seized the helm and shattered it to open a way to the Shadowlands as part of her master plan to remake reality. While she and her master were ultimately stopped and the power of domination thwarted, with the helm gone, the power and title of the Lich King was no more.
Yeah, so the primary challenge this week is an old favorite of mine in particular. That is Mega-Highlander, so no duplicates across all 4 decks. The secondary challenge this week is the one tying into our lore. Each deck must contain at least one of the following cards. If you listen closely, these names will sound familiar. Bolvar Fordragon, Bolvar Firelord, High Lord Fordragon, the Lich King, Sylvanas Windrunner, Sylvanas the Accused, and of course, the Jailer. Other rules, and this is more of a kind of clarification. Highlander cards are not allowed in ETC this week. So Reno, Zephyrus the Great, etc. So if it says no duplicates, can't go in ETC. Additionally, if a card is in ETC's band, it cannot be included elsewhere in the lineups. So overall, no duplicates across the entire deck list, the deck construction, including within ETC's band. And of course, as of a couple weeks ago, the Scourge has been defeated, so no more undead requirement, as with earlier in the season. Schmoopy Daddy, will you help us go over these deck lists for our contestants this evening?
Absolutely. So, DocBomb brought a XL Highlander Hunter, a Highlander Paladin, a Highlander Priest, and a Highlander Shaman. The Shaman has been banned, so we'll focus on the other lists. The XL Highlander Hunter is interesting in that not only does it use new cards, such as Barrel of Monkeys and Bunch of Bananas, but also, despite that early game, also has some late game that focuses on like big beasts. We've got a Beastmaster Leerok. We've got a Banjosaur, which I've played a lot of recently, and my lordy, that thing gets out of hand quickly. So he's going to try and like sort of mid-range his way into the end game, and the end game gets kind of ridiculous kind of quick. Highlander Paladin is very interesting. Has the really good Highlander cards in Paladin. which we kind of joke about, but like just the control cards in Lightforged Cariel, Light Ray costs 0 often when you play it. Countess, and this being almost a pure paladin. He's got Countess and a Chronos to clear some boards. And really impressive that he managed to just sort of fill this whole list out with pure cards, considering that it is, Mega-Highlander, and there might be some commons that you might want to slip in there. Highlander Priest. Priest isn't super exciting. I think the spiciest thing he has in there is the Sylvanas Windrunner and the Spawn of Shadows. The man can't let go of Spawn of Shadows. He wants to keep plugging it in. The old favorite from the old metas. Solid list. It looks like you can do some damage. Fairly low curve. 0 through 3 with some 4s sort of dribbled in, and then a little bit of top end right at the very end. When we look over at Staz's lists, Staz has brought an XL Highlander Druid, which is really interesting to me because it has a couple different avenues as far as some sort of win condition can go. He's got Jailer, but no Bolf, which is interesting. He's got a Tony, Prince of Piracy, which is interesting. He's got a Jade Isle, which is interesting. He's got a couple different. He's got a Kazakusan, which is interesting. He's got a couple different ways he can go with this. I don't hate any of it. He's not going all in on one game plan, which is kind of this sort of like risk reward that sort of goes forward when we play in these sort of games. He unfortunately doesn't get to use his hunter, so we'll go to his Blood Death Knight. Again, just sort of looking at it for face value. It looks like your typical Highlander Blood Death Knight. You're looking at Mograine and Patchwork to do most of the legwork. Screaming Banshee, do not count it out because it can make some big dudes pretty quickly. Murloc Holmes for value. And then just your typical, your Highlander card in here is Sephiroth the Great, to maybe even go Jiraxxus Blood Death Knight, which is not the worst thing in the world. You're always printing a corpse, but this corpse doesn't die. It's a 6/6, and they have to kill it.
Looks like
So
we've got
our Lord of the Burning Legion.
Yep.
But the really spicy thing that Staz has on offers for us is a Sorcerer's Gambit Highlander Mage. Now, if I was going to make a Highlander Mage deck, I would have built it around, Open the Waygate. But Staz has decided to go, as he has done for the entirety of the competition, the spicy route and built around Sorcerer's Gambit. So we've got, your typical like, hey, how many Frost, Fire, and Arcane spells can I balance here? While also supporting some Highlander cards like Kazakus, Reno the Relicologist, and fitting in new cards like Grandmaster Ronmath, while also having Magister Dawngrasp that will repeat cards such as, if the only shadow spell you have cast is, let's say, Mask of Cthulhu, a little bit of a burst toward the end. But Volume Up is very good in this deck, and a couple of other cards look interesting. Ignite came out the same set. That looks good. There's some spice on offer here. I hope this set ends up going 5, because it would mean we hopefully get to see everybody's deck play out.
They who control the spice control the universe.
I understood that reference.
I did too. Concerning.
Well, whenever they're ready to go, we are ready for them. I love that Dune joke from Shrek. What are you doing in my swamp? Oh, dear. All right, well, they are
I'm
about to begin.
DocBOMD starting with Priest. Staz starting with the Sorcerer's Gambit. Mage, I don't know if he's going for Spectacle or if he feels confident in this deck, but it's interesting. He's got the quest, and he's got 2 arcane spells in hand. I imagine he probably tosses the Primordial Glyph and keeps the AI? I'm not sure. Tosses the AI, keeps the Glyph. Okay, he'll take the...
Going for the curve play there. 1 Sorcerer's Gambit, of course, into 2 Primordial Glyph.
All right.
I'm really excited to see this mage deck, actually. I'm glad that it's getting played because this is the spice, right?
The spice melange. Excitement abounds.
Side effects? No.
Both players have something to play on turn 1 and 2.
Worth noting that Doc has a rat in hand, and the only minion in Staz's hand is the Lich King. A gold copy of the Lich King, by the way.
What could go wrong?
What could possibly go wrong? Ooh, Light Show has to be kind of dank in this situation. The others are fire. He has fire spells in hand. I think he picks Light Show, but I'm not sure.
It actually is pretty good to proc the arcane. It needed for his quest line. He probably was hoping for a frost, but
it's really good on the run math later too, because the run math is going to spray it too.
Yeah, relevant. The primordial glyph that was just played is also arcane. So that first arcane proc has been initiated, but we need a frost. Staz needs a frost in order to get there.
Oh, that's a good pickup.
Savara to get one of these fire spells. Probably First Flame.
Yeah.
Maybe following up with a Light Show. So that just you get it in there. Potentially. Like you don't hate it. He's really holding out for that Frost spell, right? Like he's really trying hard for it.
Yeah, it makes sense. He wants to finish the quest. There's not enough pressure right now forcing him to like rush to complete it, but
you know what I didn't notice? Doc is running Benny in his list, but Benny's hero power did not trigger. So Doc is running
whoopsies.
A 5-mana 5/6 in his deck. What's the offending spell? Have we identified it?
I'll take a look while we're watching the gameplay here.
Absolutely. So with completing the first stage of the quest, Stazari feels free to play that Light Show to initiate part 1, the arcane check of part 2 of the quest line, which of course is called Stall for Time in part 2. So still have fire and frost left. And would you look at that, there are a couple of fire spells still in Staz's hand. Still looking for that frost spell, though.
It's probably Shard of the Naru.
Yeah, Azalea Akari in chat also found that as the offending card.
No, why, Doc?
So Staz, with a few options here, can potentially ship the fire sale back in order to finale the volume up.
Oh my goodness. Rewind is so good in this deck.
Ooh, yeah, it is.
I would drop Civ here. Like I know volume up
Civ
is
is pretty good.
I would drop Civ. Like you can volume up whenever you want.
I don't dislike either option, truthfully. We've seen, of course, trading in the fire sale, so volume up is finaleing currently. That said, Shavara puts a threat on board, as well as, of course, it's always going to return the same spells. So 2 really strong options, as Stazari electing for the Commander Shavara.
I was thinking hand space, just because, like, if you don't drop Civ now, and you choose the volume up, you can never drop Civ because you're almost always have too many spells in hand.
Yeah, well, and the caster vision answer also is this plays around Dirty Rat, so.
And that's true. That's true. I don't know if that's a concern, but that,
no, probably not. But
it absolutely does.
I mean, they are open deck lists, but
probably the most relevant thing for Stazari last turn was that they knew that they were going to get a frost spell. And we're not guaranteed to get a frost spell from that volume up. So guaranteeing a quest progression this turn by getting a frost spell in hand.
Good call. Good call.
Oh gosh, now that I think about it, if this isn't played, like if Staz finishes the quest with the questline reward Dawn Grasp in hand, it could get dirty ratted. Ooh.
It could.
It could.
but you know what? Like the worst comes to worst, Doc is pulling out a 7/7.
Mm-hmm. And
that he has
seeing
to deal
how,
with. Or there's the Lich King just sort of sitting in there.
True.
That could pull out an 8/8. Like there is some rack protection too.
there is, and I think that Stazari was actively planning on quest completion next turn because we see only Frost required, and we see a 2-mana Frost spell in Stazari's hand. Critically, Stazari going into 7 mana next turn, so can play both the Frozen Touch and the quest reward in the same turn.
Good call. And it can go face. Like, so Doc played a minion here, but didn't need to for Staz to still complete the quest line.
Mm-hmm.
Doc having to burn a coin, by the way, just to keep track with. I think that's fine, right? Like burning the burn spell on the minion instead of going face is fine. That makes some sense. Because everything's going to go face now from here until forever.
Oh, wow.
Dude, can you imagine Ignite and the volume up? If he can manage that.
Ooh.
Got a couple different Ignites going. Just like pop.
That is going to be a large blood feather.
That is a thick blood feather.
However, that Ignite would deal with it. That Dawn Grasp, spell damage +3, quite relevant.
Ooh,
and Dirty Rat!
Oh no!
Astonishing!
And Doc, this is okay. You mass hysteria, but okay. Like I think Stas is oh man, Stas is definitely okay with the mass hysteria.
Absolutely. All right, Stas should be on the burn plan now. Stas is definitely on that burn plan now.
Goodness. Oh no.
Guess why Stas is on the burn plan? There was a burn plan of 1 turn.
Spicy. All right.
Wow. All right.
Stazari taking game 1.
And the schmoopy +15 pack up.
Well, that paid off, and that was fast too. Holy moly!
Yeah, that
I wasn't
looked
sure
like
how
something
that was,
I could play on ladder, even truthfully.
right? I wasn't sure how that was going to work out with the Highlander cards, but that ended up just like curving right on out.
I mean, you got like Light Show, right? That's at least 2 procs and like +2 spell damage.
+3. It was unnerfed.
+3 on the light damage. So like it's a 3-mana Pyroblast. Like, okay, GG's.
Mm-hmm. So going into game 2, Stazari is on, of course, the Blood Decay. And DoctorBOMD switching it up, going with the Highlander Hunter. Relevant Highlander or Doc's Hunter is the one in his lineup playing Prince Renathal. So there will be 35 health for Stazari to contend with. Blood Decay, known for gaining a little bit of health itself.
I think Doc might have the advantage, if only because this being an XL Highlander Hunter, he's got a lot of big threats. He's got a lot of top end loaded into this sucker. And I struggle to see where Staz is going to come up with enough answers for all those threats.
Especially looking at Doc's hand right now. Like we've got the Spirit Poacher for 2. We've got the Harpoon Gun to perhaps get something out like cheap and early. We've got the Asheron Saber to do the same. This is looking pretty good for Doc here.
But Staz knows what's up. Like he's picking the Cindy early, right? Like he's picking the Syndragosa, knowing like I'm gonna need some extra removal. I might need to remove 2 things. I'm not playing this forever, but holy cow! But I would expect that Doc can pressure with this. Interesting. He's going with the mount and then trading here. Maybe he's trying to get Staz to use some removal early. Staz drawing Reno, which is very relevant. It lets him be a little bit more free and maybe trading with his face and maybe like reading some resources before dropping Reno.
Absolutely. And that Arcanite Ripper does not mind face tanking anything down. So would not be surprised to see the Ripper to deal with the first half of the ramming mount. Also wouldn't be surprised to see some draw action going on with Chillfall and Baron. So two really good options for Stazari here. I personally am leaning towards the Arcanite Ripper, but Stazari has more reps than I do with the deck.
I'd also lean Ripper, but that being said, if Staz doesn't feel comfortable, especially knowing the matchup and knowing that he's going to have to answer multiple threats over and over again, Chillfallen might be the correct play, even if it's sort of messy here. You almost want to deal with sort of like, and he's going face with, like, he's not even trading here, right? Like, you almost want to deal with and cycle through. You almost want to get your messy turns with over now in an unfavored matchup and hope that you find your answer in what you need.
Doc getting Mountain Bear and Shade Hound both with that harpoon gun.
I assume it has to be Shade Hound. It is Shade Hound.
Doc electing for the Shade Hound. Good call, because that's going to be 3 mana in his hand very shortly.
It's funny because now, would you location here? Would you go face and then location and trade and go from there? Or would you do Arcanite Ripper still and set that up?
Regardless, it's going to be a little awkward since Doc does have that harpoon gun activated. I feel like I'd probably be mana efficient and play the location, but I wouldn't feel good about it because it can be dealt with by that
almost immediately, right?
Gun.
Like it's just trade in with the 2/2 and then slap the harpoon gun. But Doc does take 4.
And of course, because that Thornmantle Musician was played on 1, that said the next beast that you summon gets +1/+1. Ooh, and Doc playing the Asheron Saber in order to tutor it out with the harpoon gun. Getting a cheap Asheron Saber on the top of his deck, Sunken Saber rather, in order to get a big beast out early. I love that play.
Order lull. Yeah, he knows. He knows. Had to play the Arcanite Ripper first. Unlucky.
Whoopsie.
Staz knows it though.
Yeah.
Staz probably a little nervous. I mean, this is a 3rd place game. There are packs on the line.
I was really excited to hear that Staz essentially came out of Hearthstone retirement to play in the listener series and then made it to basically to the top 4, right? That's incredible. So we've got 2 really good players here. And also with DoctorBOMD being the previous season champion, it's like no pressure, right?
Yeah, it's
Absolutely.
just awesome. I'm watching 2 people here who have high rolled me in the past. So this is awesome for me.
Well, and relevantly, like you said, Nate, Staz coming out of retirement, taking game 1 against the reigning champion in this 3rd and 4th place match. Like,
True.
That is not to be discounted. That is huge.
True. This is an awkward turn for Staz. I feel like it's almost a hero power pass, and it feels terrible. But I think you have to do it. I think you got to sucker Doc into something. Maybe you hero power, hit face, and then location, trade with the pet collector, but I don't really like that.
So if I'm Staz, what I think I want to do is hero power, boop face, location, and then probably double trade into the trampling rhino, because that can get out of control really quickly. Both being a beast, so it can have beast synergies with things like, again, we have Caster Vision, Shade Hound in hand, but also, I mean, so much of Doc's
Biscuits, there's Bucket of Bananas. Okay. I think Staz might be going with my play, though, which, let's see how badly I'd lose to Doc in this case. Oh, okay. All right. He's just going to go for the soft trade. That's fine. He gets a 3/3 out of it.
Mm-hmm.
That minion does get pretty scary if you let it stay alive, so I can...
Well, Hope is up, and Hope is a monster for the rest of the game. This might be, yeah, might as well drop Mograine now because you got no better time to do it, and just and just hope you get there. Holy cow!
Yep. Drop a threat, a 7/7 can be dealt with on board, but Doc would have to face tank 7, which is more relevant, of course, because of Alexander migraines. Battle Cry, which puts Doc on a clock.
Hope is so brutal here. Holy cow!
Doc, considering dropping the Sunken Saber, Shadehound, fully infused, would deal with the board, but would not buff anything on board. So I think I do like Doc's initial idea of the Sunken Saber, potentially with the Shadehound follow-up. I don't think so. If I were Doc, I would see what I got from the Sunken Saber before making the assessment. Ooh.
Okay with this. I think it layers your threats, right? Like it's just like it makes Doc's setup basically a Russian.
Wow.
Like every time Staz clears this, even if he clears it with Soul Stealer, he's gonna have to deal with the next layer, which is something big that's been buffed by Hope. So I think this is really clever from Doc.
Completely agree. There's a reason why he is the 2 seed on our THL team, and I'm the 3.
The reason why he's my captain and I'm the 4 seed on our wild team. There's also a reason why he was the reigning champion and I'm here.
That is a lot of damage on board, so Staz has to get some health, otherwise he's just gonna die. Like, you gotta clear the board.
Yeah, he's got a few options to do so.
Beast. What's the smallest beast in Doc's lineup?
There aren't a whole lot of small ones, and that is
that's
not a small
too
beast.
Small. Unlucky.
That will tie the series up at 1-1.
Yeah. You feel like Doc really played Staz into that corner pretty well.
I feel like that was a match. Yeah, Hope does that, but also Big Beast Hunter against Control kind of does that in general. I feel like Doc knew what he was doing with that Q there.
Yeah.
Well, it was gonna be a very large beast almost no matter what, right? I mean,
yes.
And I think that's why he's running Kithrina Winter Wisp in the deck and Beastmaster Leorox, and it was gonna end up being something pretty chunky.
So
absolutely. It was a big beast package.
Let's say Staz has to get Blood DK through. What does he want to play against? Does he want to play against Priest or Highlander Paladin?
Probably Paladin. It's tough
That's
because
I think he wants. But I don't think it's good. I think that's the weak link in his deck roast, right?
Yeah.
All right, so he swapped to Druid. He's saying, okay, let's try to get a win with Druid.
Doc thinks that Staz is probably sticking with the DK and queuing up the Priest. Maybe he's not thinking that Staz is sticking with the DK. I don't know that part, obviously. Relevantly, Doc has that Raza in hand. So I bet he's keeping Raza, if nothing else. Yeah, keeping Raza and nothing else. Yeah. Staz keeping Nourish and Innervate and receiving a Circus Amalgam and Floop's Glorious Gloop.
Now, the nice thing for Doc, for Staz is Doc puts Shard of Naru in his deck. He's not going to get a whole lot of pressure, but he did just snag a twig with a needle in hand, which is really interesting. It'd be more interesting before reverts.
And Doc's starting to put on that pressure. Of course, playing the second Conjurer on 1, but that Leper on 2.
You don't try to get the Circus out here, right? That's too much.
Yeah, that's too much.
Yeah, I don't
would be committing 3 cards in order just to get out of 4 or 5.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Hello, Kaz. All right, Doc's got one win condition, or Stas has one win condition in hand. Doc doesn't probably feel super comfortable because he's not really doing anything.
Staz electing to spend 3 cards to draw 3 cards with that Coin, Innervate, and Nourish. Drawing 3, picking up a Bio Project, Aquatic Form, and Amalgam of the Deep. I don't hate it either, truthfully.
I mean,
It's card neutral, essentially.
yeah,
Spending 3 to gain
and
3.
you know what? The Seedman makes it a lot cleaner. I think you instant jam Seedman here.
Big agree.
Right? Unless there's no neutral nature spells in hand, he does have some nature spells in deck, so that's fine.
it makes sense, and there's no good time to do that. Like, you want to play it when there's not a bunch of minions on the board, right? And so the timing
Next
was
turn is
pretty
icky.
good.
Hopefully you get a dragon. Maybe you do Circus Amalgam of the Deep, and you hope you roll a dragon. But like you can literally roll everything, so it's not awesome.
Staz electing to ramp before Aquatic Forming to see what he can get. Electing for the Breath of Dreams. There's, of course, an Amalgam in hand.
Looking good.
Ooh,
Staz has
Flute
been
drawn.
playing this deck. I don't even know if you play a dragon this turn. Maybe you just do Wrath, draw a card. Or maybe you do Wrath for 3 and remove Rasa.
Yeah, maybe even Wrath to draw a card into probably Hero Power in trade.
Good call. Yeah.
A lot of options.
He wants Kaz online. Like, Kaz is how he wins this game.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I think he wants it online as quick as possible. But card draw good.
Stazari agrees with us there.
Yep. Takes the sheep line.
And probably playing Jade Idol for tempo for the 1/1. Or just holding it and floating the mana.
He thought about it.
He did.
I think this is a Tony. Honestly, this is a matchup where Tony is kind of relevant, right? Like, if you can get a Tony off and you can draw some cards, especially as he's got Overflow in hand.
We do know that the Jailer is at the bottom of Stazari's deck because of that dredge earlier. So Staz will need to draw through all of their deck in order for the Tony Jailer combo to be relevant there.
He's figuring out whether he wants to play this 3-mana Dreaming Drake right now, or if he wants to just wait on it so that he can play Kaz. I think he's taking the gamble that, okay, well, my Floop is now a Dreaming Drake. I can play Flute, I can play that, and then I can play my Amalgam Deep on it, and then I can go from there.
Yeah, and because Staz has already seen the Anduin, I really like that. Of course, with Caster Vision, we know that Doc had the Mass Hysteria, but with the information that Stazari has seen, I agree with their line there for sure.
Wow, he's sure the
Emerald
Primordial.
Explorer. It's really good.
Does it really change much?
Well,
I guess it's better than the Floop, right? It's better than the Floop because you can use the Floop for whatever.
Yeah, I
you
mean,
always play Emerald Explorer, otherwise you're floating mana.
Yeah, so you can Emerald Explorer. If you get something that you can also play this turn, that's great. If you don't, then you can also amalgam the Emerald Explorer and continue that dragon line, which is also great. So I really like starting with the Emerald Explorer to see what your options are.
Stas really wants Guff, right? Ooh.
Oh, Topiors.
Topior is pretty great.
Pretty good, but like how many nature spells you can have after you Kaz? So like it might be Crimson Hothead or Bone Drake. Like it might maybe Bone Drake because like you're more likely to get more value. Like
I mean, there are 3 nature spells in hand for Stazari. Could be relevant. Stazari going for the Crimson Hothead to be able to play it on the same turn, which I
don't hate it.
I like. It's the most stats. It makes so much sense. Doc, however,
he also might be dead because
sees the
Doc
Matrix.
has a Void Touch Attendance in hand,
and has a Twig of the World Tree on 1 remaining durability. So this is looking pretty good for Doc here.
Oh, it's
GG's.
wow.
Yeah, that should be all she wrote.
Do we know why this deck cut Spawn of Shadows, by the way?
I honestly don't. I feel like that Spawn of Shadows is just a great finisher. Like, you play Spawn of Shadows and you win the game. Doc knows what's up by throwing that into the deck.
Than a combo deck now, but it's funny to see. Especially in the listener series. Sometimes the old techniques of the old way of doing things is still very, very, very strong in the format, because the format is delayed by the challenges. So, like, you know, if you have some base knowledge of where the format has been, you do know where the listener series is going sometimes.
So true. So Doc, of course, on that Paladin, Stazari knows that they have isolated Paladin. And Stazari electing to run it back with a Druid, which makes sense.
Yeah, I don't hate it. The Spear Paladin is going to win with Countess and is going to win with Tempo and maybe buffing from hand. Like it's kind of fugazi how Doc actually wins this game, right? Because like an early Nas doesn't actually get you anything. Whereas, like, with Reno Paladin on ladder, you ramp very quickly, and all of a sudden, the things that you play have more value than your opponent. This is going to be kind of like two decks that are equally of the same value, and so it's real tough for Doc to win here if he's just going based off of pure value. It has to be Countess, like a Countess scam. Or a Lightforged Crusader scam, or in a Chronos clearing a board scam. That's where we gotta go.
For sure. Unfortunately, Stazari pitches one card and receives the Jailer in turn, which is not what he was looking for.
Which deck does Doc have Nazadormu in?
That was we've already seen it. The Hunter. Thank you, Schmoopy.
Gotcha. Okay.
So Stazari electing for the Incarceration. So Incarceration is now only 2 mana, and of course can incarcerate, make dormant, any minion of Doc's for 3 turns. Or his own if he wants to, but that would be foolish. Stazari, of course, innervating into the Seedsman in order to, of course, draw, present board, but most importantly, ramp.
Well, Doc's going to get his best cards. I mean, he's got Order in the Court, so he can get his best cards whenever he wants them. I just feel like this is stacked very heavily against him right now.
Yeah, Stazari's hand is pretty awkward here. That Nourish top deck is pretty good to draw into a better hand.
I think you gotta draw, right? Like, you can't...
I think he has to, unfortunately, because the cards in his hand are not really super playable.
That said, we do see the Jailer Tony combo in Stazari's hand. All he needs is Guff to make that, like, practically game ending here.
Where you at, boy?
So, of course, Stazari drawing, hoping to find that Guff to make that game ending play himself.
Meanwhile, what's the holy punish if Cariel sticks for a bit? I don't think there's any holy spells that are really like, oh man, these are so mission critical. He's got to get discounted. Okay, great job. You've got a free holy Maki roll now. That's right.
Yeah, with Caster Vision, we see the holy Maki roll discounted by 1 to be free, and the Righteous Defense itself being discounted to 1. Righteous Defense may be relevant. We shall see.
That could be relevant. Especially if like I would think about like just jamming Ibis here, right?
Yeah.
Are you going to get a better target if you're Doc to Righteous Defense than Ibis? Possibly not. It's only a 5/5, so maybe it's not really worth. But
I mean,
It was the tempo play. I mean, he had to play the sphere so that he can try to draw that guff.
yeah, and I can see Doc choosing something else to Righteous Defense because he can potentially deal with it on board and or at the very least chip it down to 1 with, of course, board and hero power. Stazari, of course, has a lot of larger minions. For example, if Dreaming Drake, which is in hand currently, is corrupted, then that is a bigger minion than Ibis is right now.
Righteous Defense is fine here. Yeah, Righteous Defense, hero power.
Yeah.
Go face with Finley. Yeah, that's fine. That's
Yeah.
fine.
So
And then you can order in the court and draw your yep. And Carriel's the next draw, I think, for Doc. Unless I'm
and the Righteous
mistaken.
Defense hit the Purator. So the Purator is now an 8/10.
Kaz
Stazari,
has to take Kaz here, right? Like you have
I
to.
think so. I think you really have to.
That's your win con.
Kazakhstan
Like you
is your
can't
win
do
con.
anything
Yeah.
with it, but like you gotta take it. You can't bury it at the bottom of your deck.
Yeah.
Does he rip over? Like I'm almost tempted to rip Overflow here and just say like to hell with it. Get cards in my hand. Okay, early Tony. Maybe he's not going that way. All right. Ooh.
And of course, Tony
What a
also
dragon.
was finale'd. So Staz was able to draw a card, which was an Acronos. And like you said, Schmoopy, is a dragon. That is super relevant here.
Wow.
I missed that that Doc already has Carriel and Urel in hand. I missed that part.
Yeah, and that flute
Super
draw
relevant, actually.
is pretty good for Doc here. Doc playing out the Lord Barov to get his deck back. Makes sense. Going face for 2 with Sir Fenley. Doc is pretty happy with that. If I'm Doc, I'm really happy with that flute draw there.
Yeah.
I don't know that Anachronos is the card that I'm missing, but if I knew that, I don't think I'd be too disappointed either.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, it's finally balanced. I still think that this is a weak flip turn if you do flip now.
I wonder. I
mean,
think he's just clearing hand space so that he can.
Yeah, he's probably trying to get
overflow
overflow going, right? And that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
That's good.
Clearing hand, leaving himself with 1 mana in order to at
He
least
can play something for nothing. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
and probably electing to
good.
Solar Eclipse to just dump it from hand because
dump.
he's at 10 cards right now, and Solar Eclipse isn't really going to do much.
Solar is pretty. You know what? Solar is pretty tempting with Harmonic Mood turning next turn. Let me just pop him for 8 real quick.
What are the chances that he overdraws Guff? 1 out of 20. I guess we just take the risk on that.
Yeah.
He's got an active Kaz like in hand, like with the stuff that he's looking at right now. And
honestly, so Kazakhstan still has 4 dragons left, so not quite active yet. Anachronos might be what we see this coming turn. Just he's facing down 10 damage and a taunt. Do you want to burn Scale of Onyxia or something else from your deck? I think I'm down with burning Scale.
I would just burn it.
I will make room in my
Yep.
hand. Wait.
Oh, interesting. So maybe okay. Dissonance. Make that dormant. Slap him in the face for 8.
And then probably playing the Carpenter. Yeah.
I like this. I like this a lot. It pushes damage, but it also draws cards. Like let's draw cards. Let's get through our deck. Let's do what our deck wants to do. I like that option a lot.
And it tells Doc that like the end is nigh unless you do something. Doc, however, has that Yrel can do something.
Wow, that's a problem to deal with for sure.
And the Yrel is in fact active too.
Seats is a good pickup. I wish he had kept that flute. I think that flute play was a little bit too cheeky.
Stazari agrees that Seeds is a good pickup there.
Seeds, Dreaming Drake, Hero Power, you think?
Seeds, potentially Emerald Drake to start with. Though if you're starting with Emerald Drake, then you're not seeding, so maybe Seeds Emerald Drake. You're right, though. The Seeds does, in fact, corrupt the Dreaming Drake.
I wonder if you
So would the
anachronos.
Emerald Drake.
It's already corrupted. He doesn't need to corrupt it.
Oh, is it already corrupted? My bad. You're right.
Yeah, I mean, well, he might, that's where it's like, I think he just wants to get rid of the lifesteal. Okay, so he's just going to Seeds and then...
And then Emerald Drake.
Yeah. You know what? Topior looks really good now. I would do Topior.
Yeah. I like Topior, too. We've got both of the Orca options already in hand. Doc burns the Lightforged Crusader. Since his hand is so full, he's probably not too grumpy about that.
No.
The Paladin legendaries are really good. I mean, a lot of these Paladin cards are just really strong on their own.
Am I missing Cariel someplace?
I
Which
haven't.
one?
The hero card?
The hero card, yeah.
I don't think he's drawn
Played
it
order
yet.
in the court. So why didn't he play? Why didn't he draw it if he had an order in the court?
Did something get
Play
shuffled
something
in?
that shuffled?
Oh, okay. Ooh, do you pick the Nazari? If you're Doc?
I
Okay.
don't
He's going
think
for
so.
tempo. He's going for tempo.
Oh, does the
Yeah.
Tony do it when they swap decks?
Oh, the Tony.
I bet it does.
Yeah. That's what it is.
That would do it. Thank you, Azalea Akari. Stazari facing down 22. Ooh, electing to shuffle it and being rewarded with that Spreading Plague.
You always rip the spreading plague here.
I
right?
think you do,
Spreading Plague,
but like
Dreaming Drake, like insta.
the only thing is the spreading play. Like it's super annoying, but it just buys a little bit of time.
It buys a little bit of time, but also Stazari has the Anachronos that he stole from DoctorBOMD. So it's not irrelevant. He's facing down 22, so it's not like he's facing down straight up lethal. So the Spreading Plague both keeps him from taking too much damage in the interim, as well as presents like just a board that Doc has to try and deal with. I really like the Spreading Plague Dreaming Drake. I understand, this is a big game, big match for Stazari. This is match point if he loses, right? So totally understand why he's thinking through all of his options. But
Do we ever like Jailer first and then Spreading Plague so that you have this giant board of taunts that are just like can never be removed?
so if you do that, then the taunt is irrelevant because it can't be traded into. So you definitely don't do that.
That's right. See, it just shows you how often I play the Jailer.
I have played the Jailer quite a bit.
Yeah, I forgot about that. It makes the taunt go away because they can't take damage.
Exactly. So Doc, dealing with this board rather handily. All but one can be traded into as it is currently. Gosh, if I'm Doc, I don't particularly care for any of these. He goes for the Alliance Bannerman. I think that's probably the best option presented.
Well, he's got a full hand. It's just going to make everything really buff.
Exactly.
I think this board state's actually really scary for Stazari. I mean, it's like...
Yeah.
Oh, finally
Doc,
the Guff shows up.
I mean, this seems like an Akranos turn, right? Like you gotta at some point.
It buys you a couple of turns, but like then what? I guess you have to Guff. And
I mean, that's the point. Is like it buys you a couple of turns. He did burn his one copy of not seeds. He burned his one copy of.
Kaz has 3 left, by the way.
Burned his one copy of Scale.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
So like, there's a mini bird clay. He's already used Floop in kind of a sort of a weak turn. Alright, he's just gonna get
electing
Guff up.
to play
Maybe
Guff,
Guff and then Orca, or Guff and then ramp Dreaming Drake.
potentially Otters, but it's getting a little low for that because you trade in the 1/1 Scarab Beetle. Otters deal with as much as you can. Hold on to the
Gut tells me
1/3.
Dreaming Drake ramp,
Yeah,
but
especially
I don't know how
with
good that is.
especially with how far down the rope went. While I may have played out the romp of Otters to deal with the board a bit, he didn't have time. It just wasn't available at that point.
Well, yeah, it could have dealt with a little bit, but that there's still an 8/10 there that with the taunt. I guess it could have killed one of the 5/4s and
Really, it's not too heavy.
Doc's getting pretty deep in his deck.
True. Only 6 cards left. That Jailer Tony might not be super relevant for much longer. Kazakhstan still has 2 dragons left in order to be active. We see 3 dragons in Stazari's hand, but they're all pretty chonky with Anachronos, Nozdormu the Eternal, and Topior the Shrubagazor.
The place that Staz finds himself is he's at an awkward point where he's used seeds, he's burned Scale. He doesn't have a whole lot of answers for this board.
this board is
Oh,
terrifying. Like you have
He's
to
facing down
Anachronos.
32. I feel like you're right. He has to Anachronos. He's got 13 mana. So Solar Eclipse, Ferocious Howl to gain some armor first. See what he draws, but I think Anachronos is coming down this turn.
He's got an Akranos, and then he's got to like play a dragon, and then he's got to like get Kaz down, and then he's got to draw a thing. Like it's getting like it's to quote Yogi Berra, it's getting late early for Staz.
That it is.
Yeah.
Still one more dragon for Kazakhstan to be relevant here. Also relevant, Anachronos sends
no,
2
dude.
turns into the future.
Nas is gonna send him back to 10.
Oh, rip.
Whoa, Lotheb! Whoa!
DoctorBOMD knows what's up, making the heads up play to plays that Nozdormu.
Whoa!
You're not wrong, Guff. You're not wrong.
And then 4 Dragon? Yeah, you follow with 4 Dragon.
Yeah, I feel like you put the most stats in play
Like-
that you can.
Okay, alright, fine.
Essentially the
Doc's
same
got some
stats because
secret-
it's a 4/6 and a 2 damage to face instead of 6/6
but,
just on
like,
board.
I don't know. Well, that Bio Project is actually a pretty good call.
Yeah, and getting the Shrubagazor down now is probably good because he's gonna need to like
Got it.
generate those 3/3s to try to deal with some of the stuff on the board. I mean, and he's got what the next turn. It's all gonna come back. I mean, this is getting kind of scary. Like the Kazakhstan.
Are we doing Wrath and then draw? Like Wrath and then ramp? Maybe?
Maybe.
Wrath for 3 into Nas? Into 1. Okay.
Yeah, into 1. You can
Nature?
boop in the
Okay.
Anachronos. You can boop in 2 3/3s.
Okay.
You deal with the whole board. You leave behind a board of your own. I like that play from
And
Stazari for
Doc
sure.
is not like all that far from fatigue. So maybe Staz is smelling a little bit of blood and thinking like, well, maybe I can cheese this a little bit. Maybe I can get him.
Well, he's
And
still
I
got
don't
to
know that
clear.
he's
He doesn't
wrong.
want to be.
He's still got to clear
I don't
that
think he's wrong
board.
either.
I mean, although
But
he'll
yeah,
be
the
able
board
to.
will come back next turn.
He'll be able to
The
play
board will come back next turn.
all 3 of these, the otters and the orca and the branching paths next turn.
If he wants to.
In fact, you know what? If he can generate a board full of these 3/3s and then branching paths for attack,
That's big.
that might.
Ooh, that carriel's huge.
That's big. That extends his fatigue counter by 2. He's now 60 instead of 3D.
And Doc
Essentially.
completely disrespecting the Topior 5/3, going face because he knows that he's getting his board back this turn, and he does. So Staz rather is facing down 34 damage on board. Of course, we see otters into boop and then
Wait.
branching path.
Interesting. Okay.
Well, he just.
This is it. Like if this doesn't work, if this clear doesn't do
Well, and-
enough.
And the branching paths itself does not have the nature tag, so that was not a misorder from Stazari.
Oh, it does not.
However much
Okay.
it looks like it may have been at first glance. Yeah.
It wasn't. No.
I was like, wait, you could have got one more.
However, the Orca is, so Stazari able to deal with both halves of that Leviathan's Claw
I
and
almost let
leave
him
Doc
draw,
with a
right?
2/2.
I'm almost
I almost let Doc draw. Oof.
Yeah,
That equality burn could be big.
It could, especially because Stazari has already played that due process. Doc is on 1 card left in deck.
Good explorer comes prepared.
Another Nas.
Yeah,
Slapping down
Doc
again.
goes for it.
Oh, brutal. Ew. Oh, and it got the buff.
It's not just an 8/8, it's a 12/12. Oh, and Stazari goes with a threaten. Guffs, I don't think I like you.
I think I like you. Yeah, fair enough, Staz.
That hurt a lot. Yeah, who would have thought we'd see Nozdormu
What is he
as
digging for?
as
What is
a
he digging
Lotheb?
for? I don't know if Moonlit does anything.
Ooh,
Okay.
that Alex is huge.
Could. Let's see if it bails him out. Deathwings? I think you insta jam little Deathwing right now, right? Make a trade. Yeah.
Make the trade, you little Deathwing. You pray it doesn't hit your Kazaka-san. You gotta play it though. You gotta play it. You're only at 20 health. You're facing down to 18.
I mean, we still have the Jade Island deck, right? Or no? Did he play that?
He played it on turn 1 for a 1/1.
Uh,
And we see Nozdormu the Eternal go. Stazari is not disappointed to see that go.
Yeah, that's an
And the
acceptable loss.
fatigue starts for Doc.
Doc is left at a point. It's an interesting point where it's getting to the point where if his stuff gets cleared, he loses because he just doesn't have enough value to get there. But he should be able to, like, you just Ointment Knight and then you plant Staz for 19 here? Right?
Gosh.
Is it lethal? Am I missing it?
Doc has 21. So he face tanks or trades in the Knight of Anointment, and he's got 19. Stazari is at 20, so Doc is 1 off. Set Stazari 2-1.
Only 1 card left. Oh, I hope it's good.
Staz doesn't feel real comfortable.
No,
Like, I think he has to do another DQA.
I think you're right.
Oh
Looking
man!
for
And
taunt.
he really wants the Kaz, but I don't think he can.
Even then,
Yeah, I
he's
agree.
gonna fatigue, like take fatigue damage,
Yep.
right? I mean, I don't.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, there's very specific hits you want here. You want a Nazari. You want
Ooh. Yeah.
You
If
want
he-
things that reset your health.
Life and hope.
Yeah. If he Kazakhstan's, he's like going to hero power. Ooh, Deathwing
Oh no, he dies if he
is
Deathwing.
super scary. It's not good, but
I think he dies if he Deathwings.
oh, he definitely dies if he Deathwings.
Oh no.
He dies if he draws. He dies if he doesn't draw. Stazari.
He's just gonna go YOLO. I respect it. I respect the hell out of it. Bonk.
Doc
Attaboy.
deciding
Doc
to
can
see
what
what
he
he
gets.
sees with the invitations,
Listen,
but Doc
Stas.
has claimed the third place of the Born to Be Wild Listener Series Season 6. Congratulations, Dr. BOMD. Whoa, indeed.
Slap him, Doc. Slap him, Doc. Come
Slap
on.
him in the face,
Put him out.
man.
Oh, he's gonna
Oh my
kill us.
gosh.
No, come on, Doc. All right, there. Attaboy.
There we go.
There we go. I owe you one. Yeah, Stad's gonna remember that.
Congratulations to Dr. BOMD taking third place in Season 6 of the Listener Series this season, winning the Schmoopy Cup for those extra 15 packs.
Heck yeah, those 15 packs make a difference.
Yeah, they do. And do we want to see if we can talk with both, or do we want to just talk with Dr. BOMD? I think at this juncture, we probably want to talk to both, but I'll let y'all weigh in.
Yeah, whoever's available.
Neither might be available.
Also valid.
Doc's like, I have to sleep at some point, and it's almost 1 at my time.
Yeah, 1 a.m. East Coast time.
So we shall see. The last card I added to my deck was Shard because I found a duplicate last minute. Oops. Pit Fighter for the win. Oh, Doc.
Oh, Doc. Yeah. Dr. BOMD is, of course, my captain in my THL team.
Your Thul
He's
team?
my dude. My Thul team. You're right. I'm
sure
sorry.
if my AirPods work. All right. Well, that's a ringing endorsement. Let's get that sucker on.
All right. Well, I will see y'all over there for the post-game interview to be continued.
You guys hear me?
Can everybody see me?
Hello.
Hello?
Well played, y'all. And congratulations to Dr. BOMD for taking third place in the listener series, winning what we've decided to dub the Schmoopy Cup for the additional 15 packs
Take
from
it.
Schmoopy Daddy. We're going to start off, of course, with Dr. BOMD. Doc, how does it feel to have won? I mean, you won the entire shebang last season. How does it feel to have won third place this go around? Your mic is not working. So if it's working, reply. And if not, we will, of course, defer to Stazari for our next question.
AirPods dead.
This is the way. So Stazari, congratulations and super well played on. I mean, I feel like all of those games were like super well played, super close. How did you like pick out your decks? What was your like process in coming up with this for the finals in the Schmoopy Cup?
Yeah. Well, I mean, firstly, I thought because it's Highlander, I feel like Mage, Mage, Priest, Warlock would be the top picks. And I was like, what can I do to maybe play around them? So built a couple of decks to try to counter like a Control Priest. Wasn't expecting the Spawn of Shadows in that one. And then just wanted to play something different. I remember Kazakhstan was a fun card, and Doc actually sent me a message. He goes, hey, if you're down for it, why don't we add Nozdormu in each of one of our decks, and we don't ban that deck? Just, potentially have a chance where we end up playing against each other with the Noz.
Oh, that's so funny. I love it.
That'd be silly, yeah.
Yeah. So when he sent that, I'm like, well, if I'm putting Noz in a deck, I've got to put Kazakhstan in it. And even though I probably would need more than 15 seconds to play that deck out, I had to do it. So, yeah. And the Blood DK, I actually recently joined THL, and I was like, oh, let's have a look through some what the more professionals are playing. And someone actually brought a a Highlander Blood DK. So I was like, oh, I might give that one a try, and it performed fairly well. Didn't get the best draws on that one, unfortunately. So, but I did want to ask. I mean, Doc, we're still waiting here on. Did he have his Cariel early? Because I Tony'd after he did his order, but I got Anachronus. So did he have Light Ray and Cariel already?
No, and I was trying to figure that out. I was trying to figure out like what disrupted his because you got Acronos instead of Cariel on the draw, and so I couldn't figure out whether it was a shuffle issue when Tony was played or what.
Oh, because that's why I threw out the Tony so early. I'm like, order. I'm like, well, I've got a 50-50 almost. If he's already got the Light Ray in hand, then I'll get the Cariel, And so when Anachronus came out, my heart sank. I'm like, oh my god, he's already got Cariel. So I was surprised when he didn't play it till like the end.
Yeah, I kept scanning his hand and being like, hey, does he have Cariel? No, Cariel's not in his hand. Then why isn't it in his hand? That's good. No, that was a good point.
Yeah, it's one of those edge cases that, like, how do you prep for that? I legitimately don't know. Like, does Tony shuffle? We found out by speccing that it must.
Yeah.
Right?
I don't know that there's another explanation for it. I think when you swap decks, it must shuffle them. It's probably a hidden interaction.
Was it out of order once it came back? Oh, it would have been if Cariel was later. Wow.
And he didn't draw Cariel or Light Ray immediately following getting his deck back either. So it must shuffle. And again, how do you prepare for that? There's no way to do so. Your logic makes complete sense. He reordered his deck. I'm going to steal his Cariel or Light Ray. It didn't do so. How do you explain that, right?
It might even be an aura too, where he plays order in the court, and then that aura does not carry over to you once you swap decks. So I don't know how things are programmed either, right? So that could also be an issue.
This is great. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes,
there we go.
Okay. Hey, Doc.
Congrats, man.
Congrats, Doc.
So thank you. I spent most of the game assuming he had my Cariel. And then Anachronos was the top card in my deck, or one of the top cards, and I didn't want to burn it with a Leviathan that drew, so I kept not attacking with it. Because I figured if he played Jailer, then Anachronos was my way to not die to the Jailer. And then he played Anachronos, and I don't have a good explanation. I heard a little bit of your back and forth.
None of us have a good explanation.
Yeah. So our view, and definitely ask Kat tomorrow, but our take is that whenever Tony was played, that it somehow shuffled the decks because Cariel was still in deck. Light what's it called? The beast elemental dude.
Right.
That one. Light Ray, thank you.
Yeah.
Was I believe was still in deck. So there were a couple things still in deck whenever that Tony interaction happened. So especially seeing your draw after the fact, what we think happened is that whenever Tony was played, it was basically shuffled into Stazari's deck. And then whenever you got it back, it was shuffled back. But we'll see. That's one of those edge cases. How do you prepare for that? I don't think you do.
Yeah, no, I don't know. The other thing I realized I didn't really prep for this, but as I was kind of scanning over the decks, I was like, when I realized we had the Druid Paladin matchup, I was like, oh, I can use Nas. If I don't play him early, I can use him to set him back to 10 mana after he guffs.
Yeah,
which I think got to do
discovered two more.
3 times.
Yeah, we thought that was super clever, and it was relevant multiple times in that matchup. That was heads up. Good call, Doc.
I'd have to say that is what lost me the game. Those Nos Dormers resetting me back to 10 because I was ready to do a Kazakhstan, pop off, and then I went from 15 mana to 10 mana. Yeah, I couldn't get back from that.
I think you're completely right. That cost you that game and thus the match because that was the final one. That was intense. Well played, super heads up there, Doc. So Doc, of course, we started this interview off with a question your way. Of course, how does it feel to have won what we are dubbing the Schmoopy Cup with Schmoopy's additional 15 packs as part of this one? And how did you go about prepping for this week?
Well, it feels amazing to win the Schmoopy Cup. Maybe even better than beating Schmoopy to win the whole thing.
That stings so much. That stings so much. Oh my god. I'm so grumpy.
Prepping for this week, I just I thought about what Highlander decks were good, and I remember you guys talking, and then one being posted the Highlander Shaman list. So I copied that, and I copied Memnarch's Highlander Priest list, and then I made my own Hunter, and then I made my own Paladin. I remember I had played like a Highlander Paladin to Legend maybe 6 months, a year ago, something like that. So I knew it was viable enough. And then I realized that I could add all the pure cards, and I was like, there's not really much neutral. And if I make it all pure, I don't have to worry about the Mega-Highlander aspect because none of my other decks are going to have Paladin cards.
That's a good point. When I was looking at that, I was like, all right, well, how many like class cards can you play, right?
A lot.
That's 30
in fact.
No, but like I'm just saying like when it comes to like the decks, it's a lot harder when you have a lot of neutrals that have overlap. But just going full class was really smart on Doc's part.
Yeah, and then late, I think I worked late the night of submission, so I got home and I had to like do final edits on the decks, and I realized that there were a few overlaps between the Shaman and the Priest. And so I was like swapping cards out and making edits. Literally the last edit I made, I think I had Finley in both decks. So I took out Finley I put in Shard into my Priest deck. And I didn't realize until I queued it the first game. And I'm like, why did my hero power not change?
Oh no.
I had the same question. I missed that Shard completely. I'm like, oh god, Shadow Priest, here we go. And then the hero power didn't go. And I jumped out of my seat. I was like, yes, I have a chance with this one.
Thankfully, in the second time I queued it, I got the best draw I could have asked for. I had Raza on 5, Anduin on 8. I drew Attendant and Spawn right when I needed them, and I stole a Twig, which was hilarious. Although it was nerfed, so it wasn't. The nerfed version was not nearly as good because I also had the Priest weapon in hand. So had it been the original Twig, I could have on 5 just gone Twig, whatever, Shadowcloth Needle, popped myself up to 10. Sadly, they nerfed Twig, I guess. But yeah, so I figured that either the Shaman or the Priest was going to be a good deck because it was a real deck with just a few changes here and there. And then yeah, I like the Big Beast Hunter, and then adding enough early. That game too, I just drew all of my early game early.
Why'd you go? Can I ask? Why'd you go XL with Big Beast Hunter?
Because most of the Beast Hunters are XL, and it seems to work okay with them.
Okay, so you're just going for the health padding, okay. I wasn't sure if there was like a package you wanted to fit, or like you know what I mean. Like I didn't know if there was some additional built-in restriction that made like XL the way to go with Beast Hunter there, or if you were just like I don't know, I ran out of slots, but I kept wanting to fit cards, or if there's logic behind it. So like
I mean, there was enough in there that I wanted to keep adding stuff in, because I didn't get to play any of the really big cards, but like Kathrana was always one of my favorite cards, and Eichmann is one of my favorite cards to throw in these decks. So,
I've been shocked at how good Banjosaur is. Like I just couldn't figure out how to
played it yet. But...
You haven't played it yet? Oh, wait till you play it. Like 3 months from now. It looks awful on paper, but like when it goes face and it games +6/+6 because you have nothing but gigantic beasts in your deck, it's kind of scary.
Yeah. And then the other thing I knew that I had as a backup plan, if you don't curve out with that deck, is you get the thing that reses anything that's 5 or above, and if you have a Tundra Rhino die, they all just go face.
Yeah, I'm calling it life.
For a bajillion.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. No, look good. Oh.
Yeah, but it was a really fun series, and just a fun match, kind of all the way back and forth. I thought Saz's decks were really good.
I was
about them.
I do want to ask Staz, if you're still here, that mage deck, Can you give us a little background on how you built that? Because that thing was a whole load of spice. I expected to see a quest mage from somebody, and I didn't see it from anybody. So I'm interested to hear what made you go quest line.
So that was actually for a shout out back to season 5 listener series. When we did the Mega-Highlander last season, I brought this deck because that was back when Sorcerer's Gambit was king. And I was like, well, just adapt it to sort of, 2023 standards, threw in a couple like Romarth and Volume Up. But yeah, you can see a lot of those are like last year's cards because it worked well for me then. I thought, why not do it again?
Yeah.
That was a game I did not play well.
Another one.
Well, no, the Dirty Rat didn't play it well for you.
No, I mean I was holding it from the beginning, hoping maybe you wouldn't play around it, and I could snap the Varden because I think that's the only way I ever win that game. But pulling a Lich King and then not clearing with the whatever
Hysteria. That was rough.
Hysteria. I think I had actual Hysteria in hand too. I probably could have just Hysteria'd the Lich King, and that would have been better. Anything would have been better than what I did.
Hey, hindsight's 2020. I'm still stinging. I don't know why I glooped for 2 mana just to make sure I didn't overdraw with Overflow. So we live and learn.
That felt like the that was like a turn, right? Like I felt like you could have used that bio a couple the flip a couple times later in the game. It looked clean at the time. It cleaned up your curve. But kind of like,
and then I didn't have to burn a card.
Yeah,
Actually,
it was like there are a couple games where it's just like, okay, well, we got these awkward turns. Can we get these awkward turns done early, or do we get them done late? And that was almost like you paid it forward and got it done late a little bit. I saw why you did it at the time, and I got it, but it just like it might not have been worth.
Yeah, that and burning the my scale. I think those were just a couple of extra little clearances I needed. But I chose to burn the scale there because I thought, if he's got Cariel, if I have any scales left, he'll just kill them all in one fell swoop.
I agreed at the time. By the way, with the scale burn. That looked correct to me because like you couldn't afford to burn the guff, like you just couldn't, right? And I'd have to see what the next card was to know whether or not you would have been punished. But I agreed with, like, again, you didn't see all your cards, so like if you sent your scale to the bottom, it didn't matter if you burned your scale there or if you drew it, right? So
one question.
I wouldn't feel too bad about that.
The Jerry rig, it draws a choose one spell. It will always draw the one off the top of your deck theoretically. So I've just pulled up the replay. I would have either burnt technically the what's the card that I split with the otters and the orca, or I would have burnt aquatic form. And thinking about it, if I could burn an aquatic form over the scales, but hindsight's 2020, I guess.
No, it wouldn't draw aquatic form because it's not choose one.
Oh, sorry. What I mean is it was either those two cards was the next card on the top of my deck. If I chose to put the scale
because
back
aquatic form was the next draw, and I feel like you can't know what your next draw is. So since you can't know what your next draw is, if it's guff or scale, like that's more the decision, right? And I feel like if you're choosing between the two of those, you burn the scale, right?
Yeah, unless of course Doc, high rolls and gets 3 noses.
You're not wrong.
You don't win without guff, though. Like I don't think your deck functions without guff online. Those are very different matches with guff in the mulligan for you.
Yeah. The old adage of you play either not to lose or you play to win. And I feel like actively choosing to burn the scale there is playing to win rather than not to lose.
Yeah, I agree with Sheep. I don't think you played particularly poorly then. I think that's not the decision point. The decision point to use the floop when you use the floop is it worth a debate. I think that made the turn much cleaner, but I think also it made your seeds much weaker later. I think it made it harder for you to swing backboard later when it looked like that was a matchup where unless Doc was a tempo king, and he tempoed it wonderfully, it was going to be really hard for him to keep up in that match.
Because that's paladin.
So much value.
the way that it was built, like Doc could just every turn, you just have something big and threatening on the field. And it was like, I've only got so many clears and, stalls available. I was even at one point, I'm like, where can I maybe just throw Kazakhstan down, take like any damage, and hopefully get Wand Disintegration off it?
Yeah, and he didn't give you because of the nauseous. He didn't give you the breath to do it. Yeah, no, it's well played.
Yeah.
It's really well played.
The timing of those nauseous were perfection, in my opinion. Like, well done on those ones, Doc.
And we frequently say this, but we don't do so flippantly. Like, legitimately, well played to you both. Like, that was a masterclass from both of you.
Absolutely.
In this match. So thank you both for allowing us to spectate you in this the schmoopy the schmoopy cup here.
I feel like these are decks that Schmoopy would feel proud of playing.
I agree.
Yeah, I would
completely.
Yeah, I might play him on ladder later. Who knows?
You should.
I think
Fine.
you will.
Not
Fine.
the meta deck. I heard you call out my Spawn of Shadows in the pre-show, by the way.
Ooh.
What's up?
I heard you call out my Spawn of Shadows in the pre-show.
Well, yeah, you are unique for that. You like your Spawn of Shadows, and I'm, the deck's kind of going away for that traditionally, going more for a tempo build, and there you go, like sort of finishing it. And I did make note of it that like, hey, not for nothing, like maybe this is like, this is the old way of doing things. Maybe we got to go back to the old way when we play these games sometime.
And if that's the old way, I agree with it.
Yeah, that was
a
strong. That was really strong.
You can only run one Astalor. So if I had Astalor and Priest, maybe you don't need Spawn, but my Astalor was in my Shaman, so I needed a win con. Which that was when I was trying to figure out the ban, I looked at the decks, I'm like, well, two of these have really good win cons. So I have to eliminate one of those because it's gonna beat me. I think
the other you're thinking of banning?
Mage.
Oh, yep. Yeah. I was
Mage.
tossing up between your Priest and Shaman.
Yeah, I figured that it would be one of those.
And that's I could have banned Priest, not realizing there was a shard in there.
I would never have known. You can tell I practiced the decks a lot because I definitely loaded that one once before we played.
Yeah, Doc hit me up like 0 times over 2 weeks. So
busy.
Life is busy. Life is busy.
2 weeks.
I did think about it, but then I didn't.
I deleted the decks today. I'm like, nobody's hitting me up. If nobody's gonna do it, then
we can play later.
Feels bad, Schmoopy.
Well, a worthy champion in the Schmoopy Cup. Fine, screw it. We'll just call it the Schmoopy Cup. That's fine. I'll accept it. And
Next
Staz,
year, you can play in the Schmoopy Cup.
Yeah, hopefully not. Hopefully, I'm in the Big Boy Cup. But Staz, fantastic run this season. High rolling me week 3, definitely not bitter. And then and then playing so well to beat some wonderful players on the way there, and even standing up very well against NHL, pushing NHL to a game 5, if I recall, in the semifinals. Nothing to be ashamed of. Excellent job snagging 4th place here. Thank you for participating this season.
Absolutely.
Did you have a bit of satisfaction knowing that I lost to the Hunter because of Hope of Quel'Thalas, which is what secured me the win against you in our match?
No. I just have regret and loathing. So, but you know what? That's a good amount. That's a good synergy there. That's good synergy there. We'll go with that. And but that's
Schmoopy has regret and loathing. Wise words have never been spoken. So, for y'all, and of course, we'll start out with Doc. Do you have any shout-outs that you'd like to make to wrap this recap up, my friend?
Just shout out to you guys because I had a little bit of a behind the scenes look, and I know how much work went into doing this, and it's a lot of work to keep it going and broadcast the matches, and you guys do a really great job. And it's at least half the fun of just watching it go forward and watching the matches and all that. So thanks for all the work you do.
Oh, thank you. And Stazari, do you have any shout outs or plugs that you would like to make before we wrap this up?
Well, I mean, Doc sort of stole my thunder because I was going to shout out to you guys. Like, as sort of said before, like I quit Hearthstone like a year ago, and it was because of the listener series, and I knew how amazing this, having the restrictions. It's a whole new spin. You've got to play something just besides the top metas. It brought me back, and look, made it top 4, and I wouldn't have done it without you guys constantly putting in the work to make this listener series. So, yeah, thanks to you guys, I've now sort of reinvigorated my enjoyment with Hearthstone. I've joined the THL Wild series. I just won my first ever match today. It went 3-1 against one of Doc's team members. So there you go. I managed to at least get back at least some way.
He killed King Cope. Unlucky.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but it had to be done. I couldn't, start, my time at THL with a loss, so it had to be done.
Congrats.
And one only real small shout out. Surprisingly, it's actually one of my teammates, Hudak. He was the one who did the Reno Blood DK that I, sort of stole his deck for this week. So shout out to him unknowingly. So, yeah.
Wiser words have never been spoken. And you heard that on
Born to be wild.